Hello and welcome to this new episode of AI and Digital Trust, Future Proofing Your Board, where we provide you the latest and greatest insights on how you can incorporate AI and cybersecurity to manage your boards better, manage your companies better. This is your host, Khwaja Sheikh, CTO of IBM, and Manoj Agarwal, Chief Innovation Officer at Tetranodal Technologies. We are here excited today to welcome our new guest, Douglas Conant. So, Douglas is a globally renowned business leader, New York Times best-selling author, and the only former Fortune 500 CEO who has been recognized as a top 50 leadership innovator, a top 100 leadership speaker, and one of the 100 most influential authors in the world. With over 40 years of leadership experience at world-class global companies, Doug has consistently demonstrated a commitment to high performance leadership and organizational transformation. As president of Nabisco Foods Company, he led the company to 5 consecutive years of double digit earnings growth. Later, as the CEO of Campbell Soup Company from 2001 to 2011, Doug orchestrated a remarkable turnaround, revitalizing the company's declining market value and transforming its toxic culture into one of the high engagement and performance. His leadership not only improved financial results, but also earned Campbell's recognition for its progress in diversity, social responsibility, and ethical leadership. In 2011, Doug founded Conant Leadership, a mission driven community dedicated to championing leadership that works in the 21st century. Through this platform, he continues to share his insights and experiences, helping leaders at all levels to develop their own leadership models and achieve superior performance. Doug is the co author of two best selling books, Touchpoints, Creating Powerful Leadership Connections in the Smallest of Moments, and the Blueprint, 6 Practical Steps to Lift Your Leadership to New Heights. He also serves on multiple boards, including CECP, RHR International, and the Partnership for Public Service, reflecting his ongoing commitment to effective and ethical leadership. Welcome, Doug.
My goodness, thank you. You almost used up all of our time with my introduction.
Well,
Thank you. I should take you on the road with me. I could use a guy like you. All kidding aside, I am really passionate about helping individuals and organizations lift themselves up to higher levels of performance. And for the record, I haven't had a personal paycheck from Conant Leadership since I founded it in 2011 for 14 years. I'm all into this work and I'm into it for the right reasons. So I'm excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you, Doug, for having us here. And Manoj, I think this goes back to the year in 2011. It was a rainy day where I entered Barnes& Noble. At the center, there was a table. And on that table, I saw this touch points. And I opened one page at a time, kept on reading it. I never closed it. And then I immediately went back, opened my mobile phone, searched for Doug Conant, and immediately went back to Conant Leadership. From 2011 onwards, I became a student of his leadership. And the thing was, during those days at Bank of America, we were doing a lot of acquisitions. Every 18 months, we were acquiring the company and we were growing very faster. And I started implementing Doug's principles. They were working like a miracle. I can tell there are a couple of things I think we can talk about the whole day. Like a couple of things that touched my heart that Doug talked about was how can I help mindset. Every interaction is very important. And then it's there are so many, the power of recognition. During his CEO tenure, he wrote hundreds of letters, handwritten letters to all of his employees. And literally, I started implementing in my own journey. I could elevate my performance, my team's performance to that highest level. So, Doug, I was thinking about the current changes that are happening, geopolitical risk and the rapid change of technology, etc. And I often advise the CEOs and board chairs, the importance of anchoring noble purpose with the business strategy, because it is the only way to win for both short and long term, to drive both social and economic value, not just economic value, but social value. If you have to drive both, it is very important to anchor noble purpose with the business strategy. Now, in the context of your career, what kind of metrics would you like to oversee as a board chair or lead director to strengthen purpose? Especially, like NACD came up with the framework for governing into the future. I know like Bill McNaby, one of your close friend, he co-chaired this Blue Ribbon Commission report, and it came up with the importance of purpose. And you were way ahead of the time in democratizing the importance of purpose. Maybe if you can share your thoughts on this for this audience.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I think board governance is pretty darn good. We have issues always that need to be addressed, and we have some organizations that don't adhere to board governance guidelines. But on balance, I've been impressed by the board governance given in general, given the challenges of the day. But they need to evolve. I mean, back in the day, gosh, I'm starting to sound old already. I'm talking like my father talked to me. But as a board member, there were basically 5 things you had to do. You had to provide strategic guidance. You had to co-own the strategy with the CEO and management. You had to make sure you had the right talent in the room with the CEO and some senior executives to bring that strategy to life. That's number 2. Number 3, you had to oversee financial performance. You were accountable for that. Number 4, you had to have a risk management platform that had to do with compliance, but also your fiduciary responsibility, which would include duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience, and the rule of business judgment. And then finally, the 5th thing, you had to be there for all stakeholders, investors, of course, but there are times where the board these days also needs to be a bridge with customers, occasionally consumers, certainly investors. And those were the 5 things. I think they're still pretty well managed. That being said, I remember one of my old mentors, Warren Bennis, created the term in 1987 that it was a VUCA world, VUCA. You know this: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And that was before the internet. And then, I was for years talking about it as a VUCA world on steroids, getting more and more complex. Now there's a new term called BANI, right? Brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible. And that's this generation's language for the chaos we're facing now. And we're still sort of managing by the same old board disciplines, but the world is getting more complex and moving faster. And so boards need to constantly be thinking about how can we govern the enterprise in a rapidly changing world where every vertical activity, using your T model, every vertical where you really need to know your stuff, you have to know more, and it's more complicated. And then you're trying to govern across all those verticals, and that's becoming more complicated. And theoretically, information management can help that. But boards, they meet 8 times a year, and the committees maybe meet 12 times a year. And they're there for oversight. They're not management. And they can't oversee this complexity. Management needs to, but the board needs to reimagine how are we going to provide oversight here? And what I believe boards need to do now, and it will apply to the AI conversation we have, is they need to go up the ladder and talk about the higher purpose of the enterprise. And that can't be a CEO-led exercise. The CEO average tenure is, depending on which statistics you look at, is 5 to 7 years. And large companies, which I've worked with, are not built to be making wholesale changes every 5 to 7 years. When a new CEO comes in, we have a new purpose, we have new values. Won't work. Boards need to provide more continuity. They need to own the high ground. They need to own the purpose. They need to own the values. And they need to make sure that the purpose and the values are fully reflected in the strategies. Right? Now, since some of the strategies have to deal with new territories like AI, that means they've got to make sure that their purpose is well articulated and is comprehensive enough to comprehend something like AI. So I think boards need to get back into what's our purpose, what's our reason for being, what are our values that we can use to guide the enterprise while it's going through all these chaotic changes. And we will co-own that with the CEO. Before we came on air, I talked about the J&J Credo. It's been in place for 80 years. It is not their purpose. They have a separate purpose, but it is their value statement. And every day, every employee has a moment where they do not know what to do. I guarantee it. And they can't go ask their manager because these days their managers don't know what they're doing. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, the purpose becomes the default response to what's going to the issue at hand. Every J&J employee can go back to the credo and say, how do I behave? What do I do and how do I do it with this particular stakeholder? When I was at Campbell, and I'll get off my soapbox in a minute, but this is the important issue for boards today. When I was at Campbell, I could have done this so much better. If I knew then what I know now, I would have been awesome. But we created this mission. We were basically the good company. I mean, that was basically what we were. And we became known as, we developed a purpose of nourishing people's lives everywhere, every day. And that sounds pretty broad, but I'll tell you, if you worked in investor relations or in IT and you're in the middle of an SAP implementation and you don't know which way's up, and we were, and by the way, we implemented it ahead of time under budget. Of course, my board would have said, well, you inflated the timetable and you told us a larger than real budget. If every day someone would say, I don't know what to do. Well, you nourish your supplier. Or if you're in investor relations, you nourish your investor until you can figure out what to do. So there's always an answer. And every employee has to go to that source every day. And in the fullness of time, every employee at J&J knows the credo. When I was at Campbell, every employee knew about nourishing. And that higher order governance created a platform that enabled us to manage through expanding complexity. So I think that's what boards need to do. And if we, just go to AI, by the way, this purpose thing, there's all kinds of evidence now, empirical evidence, that you get relative to your counterparts. You will experience higher revenue, higher returns on capital, and higher market valuation over time if you're purpose-driven than if you're not. McKinsey did a separate study that said, oh, and by the way, that your talent, all the people you're trying to attract, they will be 6.5 times more likely to be resilient, and they will give you more of their disposable time and much more. So the financials work, the talent management works, this guidance is something a board can get their arms around. It's not that complex. It's not like Y2K where you didn't know what you were doing.
Right.
And so that's where I think we need to head with this, and it will help the implementation of AI, which is sort of overwhelming boardrooms right now. And the answer is not to bring in an AI expert on the board. The answer, in my opinion, is to have some brilliant AI insights on the management team and to have them working with the board to craft a sense of purpose that guides the AI efforts.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Like, I think you talked about the nourishment. I want to discuss about the current hot issue that is happening right now. I don't necessarily say hot issue. I mean, like the recent announcement by Trump about eliminating the quarterly results reporting. And I know everybody is happy with that. I also believe that is a good thing to do. But from the investor lens standpoint, they would love to have some data coming every quarter to understand how the business is doing. What kind of a nourishment would you like to offer for the investors in the context of eliminating that quarterly results reporting?
Well, I think there can be quarterly conversations. I don't think there needs to be. I think the reason the data can be misleading quarter to quarter, and then you end up explaining all the ins and outs, and then it's fine the next quarter. There's a reason that quarterly conference calls have basically gone away. I think that the data piece, first of all, there are buy-side investors and there are sell-side investors. I think if you're, and again, I'm coming from pretty large cap companies, but we wanted buy-side investors who are in it for long-term value creation. And managing sell-side investors quarter to quarter could take all of your time as a CEO and as an investor relations team and a finance team. So I think overall, I think this is a good idea. I do think there are, depending on the sector, there are things where people can get indications of performance. The analysts may not have the financials, but they have access to market data, market share data. They have access to all kinds of data across the industry that give them, if you're derailing, they would know. I mean, they would know. And certainly within 52 weeks, they would know. So personally, I think, my opinion, it's much ado about nothing as a CEO. Easy to say, but I think if you're a buy-side investor, you're really not paying attention to the quarterly data anyway.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to the purpose and discussion about AI. I think even when you mention latest research from McKinsey and others, I follow a lot of ancient wisdom, and the concept of ikigai, which points to our purpose, has been around for centuries. So I just wanted to reinforce the idea behind purpose-led organizations are always going to do better, and it has been around for centuries. In fact, some of the work that we do with AI, it actually helps people discover their purpose as well. Yeah. So continuing that conversation about leading from purpose and aligning yourself as a human being. So at Nabisco and Campbell, you led with consistency and authenticity, but in a ego-driven world, many leaders today feel pressure to project an image that is a public image versus their real human being. So how do you feel? How will you advise people to align their identities and be truly authentic and purpose-driven?
Well, first of all, if somebody was to ask me, what does a good corporate purpose statement have in it? What is a good, and then we'll talk about the leadership. It has to be meaningful. It has to be authentic, credible, somewhat inspirational. It has to be clear. Ideally, it links to the company's key competitive advantages, and it has to be inclusive of all stakeholders. Now, if that's a good purpose statement, which I think it is, there's a lot of research on this, then that is the definition, those are the leadership requirements of the leader, of the CEO. This is Gandhi 101. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. It has to be unmistakable. If it's not unmistakable, it will be mistaken, and you will be viewed as inauthentic. Quite frankly, you really have no choice. Especially if you're CEO of a large company, there's too many places where things can fall down. It's a high risk proposition. I used to, I think it was my grandfather or my uncle used to say, what you see has to be what you get. And so I think a leader needs to lead with authenticity and build credibility and connect with the enterprise in a very real way. The language I've always used is, if you want your employees to care about the agenda of the company, they damn well better believe you care about them. It just won't work any other way. It's just not sustainable. And so I think leaders need to live into that model. And if they can't, they're at risk, in my opinion. And the company, and a lot of companies started creating pretty attractive purpose statements, but what they said and what they did were not the same thing. And that hurt the CEOs who lost their jobs, without going into any details. And that also hurt the companies because they had no credibility with their purpose statement. You see, you're not living it, you lose credibility. So, and I think boards didn't own this enough. If the board owned it, it's like, I go back to the J&J credo, even though it's not it's values. A purpose statement and values have to go together. And when the board owns it, they pick a CEO that can own it or does own it, and that is aligned on values. They ought to be using that as guidance for the succession process. And they also ought to be looking, having done CEO searches before, there ought to be evidence that this CEO has been living this way prior to becoming the CEO. So I think it starts with the CEO. The CEO needs to set the tone at the top and needs to demand that tone be carried out throughout the organization very clearly. They need to be visibly talking about their commitment to their higher purpose and their credo. I mean, I can remember, I'm drawing a blank, Alex Gorski from J&J. They were talking the credo every day. Had been around for 80 years, and he's recently retired as CEO, but they were still talking about it 75 years later. And everyone knew it. And it was a live, breathing thing. And the board knew it. The board felt they had to own it too. And that's the kind of mentality I would like to see at the board level. We have a lot of wonderful purpose statements out there. And CECP, the board I used to chair and still sit on, has done a ton of research in this area. We have more companies with more robust senses of purpose and a sense of purpose that they're living into with their values. And guess what? They're doing better, despite all the chaos in the world and in the markets and in the politics of the world.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Doug. I think I want to get some more wisdom from your work, including the CECP, on my next question. I always believe the talent drives everything: strategy, risk, and good tech. And recently, we have been seeing in the industry where there are certain companies that put clients first, employees second. I know yourself, myself, Bill George, we fall on the camp where employees comes first. As you rightly say, to win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace. What is your take on yeah, the to amplify that conversation for the audience who are here? How do we make sure that the talent comes first? If you, as you rightly say, if you have to care on my agenda, you have to care your agenda first. In that context, what kind of new non-financial metrics would you like to oversee as a lead director upon hiring the new CEO, so that the purpose and values will remain consistent by keeping the heart of the employees towards that purpose?
First of all, talent, to me, talent is job one. Every time I've had great talent, we've done well. When I haven't, we haven't done very well. And a board needs to sort of own the talent process at the highest level. And there are, I want to say, 6 steps in there. The first one is to create a desire for people to be part of that organization, to have it known for its talent, then to recruit them, then to develop them, then to engage them in talent. And that engagement is key. I'll come back to that. And then to leverage them as a team, and ultimately to retain them. And so there's this whole talent management thing is critical. If I had to, in terms of recruiting, we can go so many different ways here. Bear with me. In terms of recruiting, I look for people that have evidenced this kind of behavior in prior work. And I am big on understanding if they have the competence and the character to lead their enterprise, if we're recruiting them, to lead the enterprise forward in a way that's consistent with ours. The first thing you need to do is you need to define what we want. And I wrote a foreword to a book on succession planning and recruiting. And basically, you want to have a document that the board owns that says, here's what we want. And it should explicitly say what the purpose is, what the values are, and then how you want to see them manifested. So you have to have the board aligned around the search. But then you need to really probe deeply on prior experiences, I think. And you need to verify those experiences through multiple connections. Typically, there are 3 things that you look for: competence, and that's not just intellectual. It's also emotional competence, IQ, EQ, and what I call FQ, which is functional competence or domain expertise. If you're in the food business and you're going to go run a food company, you probably ought to know something about the sector. So that's those 3 competencies. There's character. Have you evidenced, do you do what you say you're going to do? And does that show itself in prior work experiences? And the third thing is there evidence that you enhance team performance? Was the team better off for you having been there? And what would they say? And when we would recruit at high levels, we would be checking character, competence, and chemistry, and we would be probing from multiple perspectives to understand that. In terms of all these constituencies, all these stakeholders, the most important one is employees. And I'll tell you why. Because they're the ones that touch all the others. The investor relations touch the investors. The salespeople touch the customers. The marketing people touch the consumers. So, and if they're all aligned and singing from the same hymnal with purpose and values, they are the vehicle by which you communicate with all of your stakeholders. So all of the stakeholders are important. It's interesting to me because the J&J Credo, which I've spent a lot of time on, has their ultimate consumer first. They have doctors, nurses, patients, mothers and fathers when they had consumer products. And number two was employees. They didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 4 of them. But stockholders were the last one. And basically, the way you influence stockholders is through the organization you're creating. And are they all on the same page? Are they living the purpose? Are they living the values? And are they delivering the goods? So you have to have the employees on it. And then boards, when I was chair of Avon, we were in dire straits. As chair of Avon, from time to time, I had to go talk to investors. But it was really the CEO who had to manage that process and the investor relations team. So I think the key is employees. And then the employees will enable you to have a coherent communication with all stakeholders that holds up to scrutiny. If in the early days, when missions and purpose wasn't that important, it would be very easy for large companies, and this happened, that the salespeople would be telling the customers one thing, the IT people would be telling the customers something else, the marketing people would be talking to consumers in ways that didn't connect to either one of those. It was disconnected. Now you can't afford to have that happen, not with the advances of communication and the fact that one misstep will go across your system in no time. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer that employees are job one. They touch everyone else. And if you want to have a measurement, you measure, in my opinion, employee engagement. It's the closest proxy to purpose-driven performance for an enterprise that I have seen. It's not magic, but if it's good relative to your peer group or relative to the larger sector or to industry, if it's improving every year, that to me is telling you you're on the right track. There are some companies that do employee surveys, the equivalent of a Gallup 12 survey, except they're surveys related to their purpose and their values. And they're doing them every year, and they are seeing, they're finding out how are we doing in terms of the comprehension of our entire employee population, the comprehension they have of our purpose and our values. And are we doing better, worse? If we're doing better, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. If we're doing worse, what's working, what's not, what do we need to do differently? But I would do, the proxy for me has always been employee engagement, has been for now going on 25 years. And I don't know of anything materially better.
So carrying that thought forward, when you work when you're managing a large group of people, how do you engage them? As you said, that's a very good measure of their future performance. But you have done something unique to move this forward. You actually wrote over 30,000 handwritten notes to employees at Campbell. I don't even know, first of all, how you did that, 30,000. So that was obviously to engage people and build this connection. So, but today, as you know, we are in the era of Twitter and social media and emails, and people are working remotely, hybrid. So what will you advise for people to build that type of connection, have that kind of dedication to building these relationships at scale, because it is so important, as you said, to engage employees
in a personal way? I mean, the personal connection is material. I did a posting on LinkedIn about those 30,000 notes you talked about. And most of those were 10 to 20 years ago. And we had thousands of responses. If you just go to it's unbelievable. These people that got a note from me 20 years later are telling me they still remember the moment and they still have the note and they found it so motivating. Let me tell you the theory behind this without taking up too much time. And that is that all of our organizations tend to evolve as great critical thinking machines. We will find what's wrong and we will fix it. You put a spreadsheet in front of me, I will find the busted number. I don't need to spend much time. Okay? We're trained to do that. And before you know it, the whole organization is obsessed with finding problems and fixing them. That's part of the challenge, but not all of it. The companies I went to that were really broken, Nabisco after Barbarians at the Gate, and Campbell after they lost so much market value. Even then, 8 out of 10 things were being done right. And they were consistent with the strategy, but nobody was talking about them. It's crazy. So, but as a CEO or as a manager, you have to be able to do this in a way that fits in your cockamamie life. How are you going to write 30,000 notes? Well, I'll tell you, we set up a system. I had a 2.5 hour commute to work and from work every day.
Wow.
So, and I'm old, so I didn't have all the technology in the world.
They didn't give you a helicopter?
No, it was a car. Ultimately, there's stories about that too. But so my assistant would print out all the activity from our one portal of what went on that day. I would read it on the way home, and I would identify 10 to 20 people that I wanted to write notes to. And then on the way in, I had 2.5 hours. I sat in the car and I hand wrote notes. And as soon as I walked in the building, I handed them to my assistant. And they were immediately delivered to the people. And even if they were in Australia, if it was an important contribution, it was FedEx to their home. A thank you note. So, and I did that 6 days a week. I did it 5 work days and one day during the weekend.
Wow.
And I was just doing it to reinforce what was working. So I wasn't saying happy birthday, that's nice, but I was saying, nice work. This was on strategy. And you delivered on time and under budget in the third quarter on your shift. And they were getting all these notes every day. And all of a sudden, the people who worked for me were coming up to me saying, do you expect us to be handwriting notes to everybody? We don't have time to do that. And I said, no, but I do expect you to bring some balance to the equation. Celebrate the things that are working, that are on strategy. So people were celebrating what's working while we deal with all the stuff that's not working. And it did, along with a lot of other things, it did start to change the engagement profile, because all these people, if you just go to that, it's mind-boggling. This one LinkedIn posting recently, these people all felt the CEO was watching and was paying attention and was thanking them for it. And it lifted the enterprise. We were in 38 countries at the time. Wherever you would go, you would find my notes stuck in a cubicle somewhere. It was crazy. And I meant every word of every note. Yeah. And I did it for a decade. We didn't figure out until Forbes was interviewing me when I was retiring. They said, we heard you write a lot of notes. And I said, yeah, I write 10 to 20 a day, 6 days a week. I have for a decade. They said, well, how many is that? I don't know. So we sat there with my calculator and figured it out. And it was at least 30,000 notes. And that was just to Campbell people. And we only had 25,000 people. Wow. I sent out 30,000 notes. Yeah. It's crazy. Now, I don't do many handwritten notes anymore. But there are all kinds of ways leveraging technology that managers and leaders can show people that they're paying attention and that they're appreciative of good work.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the delivery vehicle. It is the intention behind it. I do think if you can, you make it as personal as is practical. If you have a Zoom team meeting once a week, you reserve 5 minutes to celebrate team member contributions, and you celebrate them in front of the team. And if you have your one-on-ones with people for a half hour, you say, okay, we're going to save you save 5 minutes at the end to tell them you're paying attention. I saw you delivered this at the end of the quarter. Well done. Is there anything I can do to help you with that? I mean, but you gotta, it's just practical. If you want people to be personally engaged in the work, you got to get personally engaged in what they're doing for you. I think that's also true of boards. Boards can do it through the committee structure. Who's ever chairman of the finance committee can be creating a deeper, more meaningful relationship with the CFO and the CEO. If you're in charge of organization and compensation, you can have a deeper, more meaningful conversation with the CHRO. So I think even boards can make this a little more personal, and so people feel the connection. You know, the one thing we talked about, Bonnie, and James Cascio is the cultural anthropologist who came up with that term. Brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible. Anxious is the word. It is the word across all the organizations I talk to. Anxiety is at an all-time high. How do you reduce anxiety? You pay attention to the little things. And you let them know that you let the people that are laboring for you, trying to serve the enterprise well, know that you're paying attention. And that was the whole premise of the first book you read on touch points. And it pays enormous dividends. I mean, and guess what? It doesn't cost a thing. You know, we can't spend this much on leadership development, or it costs too much to do a big annual event to celebrate contributions. You don't need to. You just need to manage in a more personal way when people are doing the right thing and the enterprise is benefiting. I personally, I like to wish people happy birthday and I hope you have a good day. But my time was precious. I was talking about things that affected our company. And I think board members can do that a little more. I know they can, without complicating their lives. And certainly I believe management needs to do it more, because anxiety is going up, and this is a way to bring it down or at least contain it.
Absolutely.
This is fascinating, Doug. I think since we are having the conversation on purpose, I think I have literally seen the power of recognition that you made, as well as another leader that I remember is David Novak. He was very strong on the power of recognition.
Oh, yeah, he was. David Novak was, help me, Taco Bell.
Yes,
that. Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
He did a great job.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and if you look at Costco right now,
right.
I mean, or Doug McMillan at Walmart, they are very purpose driven. They are celebrating contributions of significance. They're dealing with the tough stuff, and their board is dealing with the tough stuff. But they are purpose driven, values driven, and they have higher employee engagement.
Right. So, Doug, now I want to shift another stakeholder lens, which is the planet, our society, our communities. And if you look at the AI world, the world of AI is divided between the large language models and open source AI, including smaller language models.
Yeah.
I have seen few firms that have a strong affinity towards large language models that have a significant impact on the energy consumption and climate. And I see this due to the lack of board oversight and skills gap in the boardroom. what kind of advice would you offer for the nomination and governance chairs, including the general counsel, for future ready the composition of the board for the new tomorrow, so that there is no misalignment with higher purpose and other stakeholders like climate and the planet?
Well, when there have been, and this is unique, we're in a unique time. You guys would agree with that. Years ago, we had all this siloed stuff, and we were trying to go to enterprise-wide software, SAP. And then we had Y2K, and then there are episodic things that loom larger than life. And in those, my belief is that management has to create a team that can manage it. But if I were a board member, I would want an external advisor helping the board understand what the opportunity is and where the risks are. I think it's material enough to the future to have an external advisor who is part of the process, who gets to know the company. You don't need a full-time, in my opinion, you don't need a board member, but you do need an external advisor. And given the ramifications of all this, it's a cheap date. So you just need to find, I think, a good external partner who can be advising. It can be, I would prefer it not be the people that are supplying the AI software, but I think boards need a third person in the room who can advise.
Right. So let's say that's what the practice the boards have been doing. Now, what I have seen is a lot of technology items are put in the audit committee as a board agenda item. Well, I strongly believe that we need a technology innovation and cybersecurity committee as a separate committee, because there are a lot of interdisciplinary activities that happen that,
well, that's
what's
happening.
your take on that?
That's happening in boards, I think.
Right.
They are recruiting expertise that can manage that, but things are moving so quickly that, it takes a while to get a good board member. We haven't talked about how important it is to have the right people at the board table. So you got to be very careful with how you build your board. It's not just, let's go find somebody that knows what's going on here, because board chemistry is essential to govern effectively. So I think until something becomes obviously demanding of the enterprise to actually add a director, I think you manage it with an advisor. And I would, but I do agree that this cybersecurity piece needs to be addressed and needs to be part of the portfolio as part of your risk management system. It's too, you have no choice. But I just have, and I could be wrong. You know more than I do about this, but I think AI is moving faster and getting bigger. And I don't think it's going to be too easy to get a competitive advantage here, because ultimately AI is data and information. I'm going to be wildly simplistic here. And ultimately, everybody is going to have access to data and information. It's what you do with it. And so, you want to manage the process carefully. You want to have good quality advice. But until you know what you're going to do with it, I would tend to maybe the chair of cybersecurity and risk management could also have responsibility to have an outside advisor on AI who would partner with management and the CIO. But I don't think I'd rush to, until I knew what I was dealing with, I don't think I would rush to create yet another seat. and to go deeply in it. But some of the companies, that are heavily reliant on AI, like Google or some, that may require, that's a different kettle of fish. And I know they're dealing with it differently.
Yeah. So, as you said, like there is no rush, but do you not think it actually creates a little bit more urgency? Because if we all know that this is something we have to deal with sooner or later,
Yeah.
and just by the way, like I also saw news flash that Albania as a country, they have actually appointed AI as one of the ministers in the government. So
Wow.
in a way, people uh, people are the biggest asset of a company, but they are also making decisions, and with their intelligence and knowledge, and AI obviously by definition has a lot of that knowledge.
Yeah.
So adding this in the mix sooner rather than later, isn't that advisable?
Well, I think, it might be in certain sectors and in certain industries. For me, I would have a fast follower mentality. I would want to know the landscape, and I would want to know the landscape real time. And if it ever became essential, I would want to have a structure, and I would want to be putting a structure in place to manage it. But I wouldn't be rushing to put a structure in place until I had a good idea of what that structure was going to be doing. But to each their own. That's how I would approach it.
I think, yeah.
Anyway,
I think you just gave us an idea. Maybe we should change the format of the show where you can ask us about what's going on.
Well, as long as I've got you two there, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Because you guys are on it. But I do believe in the short term, the AI thing we're talking about, it's more about the impact on humans and employees than it is about the data, right? I mean, everybody's paranoid about it. And the anxiety, we go back to the anxiety level, it's at an all-time high. So all of a sudden, we're going to announce that we have a new board member who's going to be leading the AI charge. And I'm going to have employees wondering, okay, what's next? How long am I going to be here? And I don't care what you say, you're just going to be raising anxiety up to a level that you may not want to do that quite yet. You may want to understand more, but the need to understand has to be there. I mean, you have to know what's going on, and you have to have good quality real-time information.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Doug. I think at IBM, we always believe that innovation is directly tied to growth. And what I have seen is the number one killer of innovation comes from the board's oversight, because I counsel lead directors to break the cycle of incrementalism and sharpen the decision making that underpins the service of a courageous growth ambition. Like, for example, at IBM, we literally saved $3.5 billion of productivity by using AI internally. Those savings were redirected towards innovation. That innovation flywheel led to what we are leading today in terms of quantum computing in the marketplace. So, I would like to know your take on what is the board's role, to have that venture mindset, so that the innovation is in the DNA of the boardroom for the long term.
Well, I think, obviously innovation is critical. And as you get cycles of change that are moving more quickly, it's creating more opportunity for innovation. But you have to have people that can keep up with all the changes. And you have to have a system that's characterized by remarkable agility. So, I think, to me, I would be revisiting my purpose statement. and my values, and I would be talking, I think I have here, IBM, to be a catalyst that makes the world better, right? Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And then I would have a set of values underneath that, and then I would connect that purpose with those values to my strategies, and I would make sure that those were explained to our employee population explicitly and often. I remember as a CEO, I used to get so tired of saying the same thing, but I was constantly reminded that the people that were listening I was talking to different people all the time, and that I needed to keep beating the drum and keep saying the same thing over and over again consistency was required. So I would tend to, it all goes back for me to purpose, values, connecting the values to strategy, having the board fully integrated into that proposition, and then having management leading the way in terms of the implementation of the strategies, recommending to the board how they ought to be organized to deal with it. And then the board can decide how they want to organize to help management address the issue. I've just been around a long time, and whatever's going on we need a new board member. That's a new white space. We got to add another board member. And if we added board members for every new thing, there'd be 30 board members that are only meeting 8 times a year, and it would be sheer chaos, and it would not be well governed. So I just think you want to make sure you have the knowledge, but you don't want to commit to a structure for it. I don't know what else to say about it. I believe me, employees are watching. Who was it? I think it was E&Y just announced that last week or the week before that all administrative assistants were being terminated in the U.S. And managers were going to have to manage that stuff now. And it's like, that's going to be dropped at the doorstep of AI. It's and anything bad is going to be put right. Oh, that's driven by AI. Don't trust it. So I think we just have to walk carefully here. We have to realize that we're on eggshells with the people that we are counting on to deliver the goods. And even though this step may not affect them, did you hear what happened at EY? They eliminated, this stuff travels like wildfire. So I think you need to be careful. You need to have it integrated at the highest level, and be a fast follower in terms of how you want to organize to execute AI. If you're the number one competitor to IBM, and IBM has an organization announcement focused on here's how we're doing AI, you want to pay close attention, and you want to make sure you have a rational approach to it too, that you can explain to all your stakeholders, particularly your employees.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 1 more minute left, so I'll make it try to make it quick. As you said, in your book Blueprint, you also talk about preserving the energy of the leaders and employees. And with all this AI talk going on, automation going on, it's also a way to preserve the energy at the same time. As you said, like people are afraid of using it or losing the job and things like that. Even though, as you said, like you recommend being a fast follower, what will be your advice to maintain that balance of preserving energy, preserving resources with technology, and not raising that level of anxiety?
Well, I think there's an opportunity that hasn't been talked about much, where we want to be, there's the concept of the emotional bank account, right? And our bank accounts, for the most part these days, are not in the black, they're in the red with many organizations. I think you can use AI as a force for good here. And you can use AI to celebrate all the contributions that are being made around the world every day. And you can recognize people that are doing all these contributions every day. And you can build a platform that is actually making deposits in the emotional bank account, as opposed to just streamlining and making things more effective. I think you just want to have a balanced approach to it. And I suspect it's being focused. I don't know this because I'm an old retired guy. I suspect it's being used now to address critical strategic issues. But one of them is employee engagement. So how can you use AI to enhance employee engagement? I think that would be a cool project. I think you two ought to go to work on that.
I think I have a solution.
Big idea, and I want credit for it.
We have a solution for that if you're interested.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But it can be bigger and better. Okay.
Absolutely. All right. So, Khwaja, please go ahead. You can close it.
Yeah. This is fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Doug,
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for joining this session. Again, for the folks who are in the LinkedIn audience, I strongly recommend to follow Doug's work and also his 2 books here that really touched my entire career as well as my personal life. And also, Doug, just to wrap up, if you can give us a 1-minute overview on the important work that you are doing for the Conant leadership, because it really touched my heart how you are moving from success to significance with that, where you are scaling hundreds, thousands of leaders to make them better for the new tomorrow.
Well, the challenge for leaders today is, the word that I'm hearing around organizations is that there's this high level of anxiety and there's this lack of managerial courage. And I believe that people are not showing the courage of their convictions because they don't know what their convictions are. So they're being tested, they're reacting, but they're really not well grounded, well anchored in their company purpose or in their own purpose and in the company values or their own values. And so what we're trying to do is helping people get anchored in their purpose and their values, and helping teams get anchored in their purpose and their values, companies the same. And then we help them. That's wonderful. We're all anchored. Great. But now we have to bring that to life. How are you going to show up differently? And that's where being a CEO doing this as opposed to a life coach, we're in this for results, and we can do things and we can make a difference, but we've got to show up differently, and we've got to bring to life these great intentions we have with great action. And that's what we are helping people do. And we're talking to 400 to 500,000 people a day across our different platforms, trying to help them find their footing. When they find their footing, they manifest more courage and they're more helpful to their families, their teams, and their companies. This isn't really rocket science, That being said, it's easy to say and hard to do.
Great. Well, thank you so much. With that note, we'll thank you for sharing the wisdom. We will put your email or contact information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you.
Yeah, send them to my website, not to me.
So the website, yes.
I can't take 400,000 people contact.
Well,
I know you have a lot of reach, but I can't do that.
No worries. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.